This is a meeting of the North Branford Water Pollution Control Authority and Town Council on Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021 at 7:08 p.m. It looks like it is to me. Let's start with a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Michelle, you all set? Can we do the roll call?
We can.
Okay.
Okay. Mayor Viglione,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Zampano,
Here.
Councilor Angeloni,
Here.
Councilor Diamond,
Here.
Councilor Duty,
Here.
Councilor Downs, Councilor Fawnin,
Here.
Councilor Gold, nope, Councilor Palicia.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Michelle. Minutes of previous meeting, January 19, 2021, Town Council meeting.
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay. Motion was made by Councilor Angeloni, seconded by Councilor Diamond. Any discussion? Do we have a vote, Michelle?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Sorry. Sorry,
Okay.
Michelle.
Nope.
I think
I'm a
Walt's
little anxious.
coming on now.
Okay. Walt, you here?
I'm here.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you. We just got started.
Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, I'm gonna move into the Water Pollution Control Authority agenda. The first thing we have is correspondence and citizen statements. Nothing there. Unfinished business, there's none. Next, we have new business, 26 Mansfield Drive, map 62B, lot 29C, Totucket Woods Development LLC, connection to sanitary sewers. Kurt?
Good evening. This is
Hi.
Kurt. Just to give you a brief rundown, 26 Mansfield Drive is a vacant lot right adjacent to the Tucket Woods complex, the apartment complex. The proposal is to construct the applicant is requesting to connect a proposed 4,800 square foot garage warehouse building with an additional approximately 1,200 square feet of office space into the sanitary sewers. It's sort of a accessory and subordinate use to the apartment complex. You want to put all the vehicles inside and put their general offices in that facility. The biggest item before the WPCA is the special connection fee. Based upon the square footage and the use of the building, the net result is the computed special connection fee for that unit with 4,800 square feet of warehouse use and 1,200 square feet of office space would be for 3 connection units at a rate of $4,000 per unit for a total of $12,000. There's a couple of details that they have to. I've asked for. I've attached a suggested motion for consideration to the WPCA, basically including the estimate requirement. One requirement is how they connect to the sanitary sewers, and the standard condition, the last condition is that they would have to enter into an agreement with the town as approved by the town attorney and executed by the town manager. That's pretty much it. It's pretty straightforward. And there is a suggestion motion for your consideration. There's also a site plan included with the letter and a letter from Jim Preddy, the design engineer for the project. But again, it's a 4,800 square foot warehouse use with 1,200 square feet of office building that would be proposed to connect to the sanitary sewers at the Mansfield Drive cul-de-sac. Again, everything seems to be in order.
For the sake of discussion, I'll move to accept the motion, to adopt the motion on page 18 of our iPad.
I'll second it. Joe, who was that? Was that you, Joe?
Yes, it was, Bob.
Adopt the motion on page 18.
Okay, the motion was made by Councilor Diamond, seconded by Councilor Fawnin. Any further discussion? Okay, we have a vote. Michelle?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
Okay, next, we have citizen statements and petitions. Nothing. Okay,
Mr. Mayor, before
Yeah,
we
go ahead.
continue on, I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to add item 11B, the appointment of Al Rose to the Permanent Project Building Committee.
Second.
okay, motion was made by Councilor Angeloni, seconded by Deputy Mayor Zampano. Any discussion, any further discussion? Can we have a vote, Michelle?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Okay. Thank you, Rose. Let's move into reports of committees, boards, and commissions. First we have is Economic Development Commission. Roger Salloway, monthly report.
So that
Sorry, I had to unmute. They had the report is in your packet, but they also had a meeting last night. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to stay through all of it. I had to jump off for a health district meeting, but they had scheduled to have Belfonte company, Michael Belfonte and his group present to them, and unfortunately, due to some illnesses and COVID-related issues, they weren't able to present, so they moved that item off to their next meeting. But they did, I think, cover a lot of ground, and I think Roger's report covers most of the items that they've been working on. So I'll be happy to take any questions, but again, I was only available for the first half hour or so, and then I had to jump off.
Okay. Anybody have any questions? All right. Thank you, Michael.
Sure.
Next we have Parks and Recreation.
The Park and Rec meeting that was supposed to be held last week was canceled due to a lack of quorum, but they are trying to reschedule that for this Thursday.
Okay, thanks, Rose. Next, Police Commission.
The next meeting is Monday, the 8th of February, next week.
All right, thanks, Marie. Fire Commission.
The next meeting is this Thursday, the 4th. Excuse me.
Okay, thanks, Ron. Next, Board of Education and Town Council Communications Subcommittee.
No meeting?
Okay. Next, we have Planning and Zone, Town Planning Goals Subcommittee. Sorry.
No meeting.
All right. Next is Planning and Zoning Commission.
The last meeting was on the 21st of January. And the meeting was dominated with the continuation of a public hearing for farm use, for using farms for out of the ordinary farming things like weddings and different venues like that. It went on for quite some time, and it was actually a very constructive meeting by everyone that participated. And eventually, then what occurred was the Planning and Zoning withdrew the text amendment and may bring it up sometime later on or may not. So that was what went on most in the meeting. And the next meeting is this coming Thursday.
Okay. Thanks, Tom. Next is North Branford Police Department Facility and Town Center Advisory Committee.
The next meeting is next Wednesday, the 10th of February.
Okay. Next we have Finance Subcommittee.
Our next meeting is next Tuesday, February 9th.
Okay. Unless we have Ad Hoc Design Review Committee.
No meeting.
Okay. All right, and we'll move into Town Manager's Report, update on COVID-19. Michael?
Yes, I have the report in your packet. I'll go through that first, and then also I'd like to have Jesse Catano, Recreation Director, speak as well about the efforts that they're helping with respect to clinics. So, the report's in there on page 18. The numbers I'd like to have your focus on is page 28, where you look at to date, and this is a report from January 27th, 775 total positive cases. And a few slides later, you'll see the trend. Again, I've mentioned this before, October, 44 positive cases, November, 117 positive cases, December shot up to 277, and as of the report, 189 for January, and likely has topped 200 for January as well. So, the testing is going forward. A lot of accessibility with respect to testing, and now moving into the vaccination rollout, and it's really been all hands on deck for that type of rollout. So we've been meeting quite a bit with the East Shore District Health Department. Interestingly enough, we're a department of three, so it's North Branford with Branford and East Haven, but in the state's rollout plan, or in the state's strategic plan for getting vaccinations out, we're grouped in with Guilford and Madison as well. So the 5 towns together are part of a region they call a region that works to assist with the state on rollout. So there is a positive report to say with respect to vaccines. I think most of you know that the effort in the rollout was the first responders and frontline workers, and then there was a pullback to focus on residents 75 and older. So that is the focus, and will continue to be the focus until the governor of the state rolls that or gives the open green light for 65 and older. So at this point in time, the state has done roughly 30% in that category of 75 and older. North Branford happens to be trending a little bit higher than that in the positive territory. We're over the state average. We're at 36.8%. So we have done, in a population for North Branford, 75 and older, is approximately 1,247. 459 have been vaccinated, so that brings us to a percentage of 36.8. Just so you know, the entire population of, or our projected population of 65 and older, which will be the next round, is 21% of our population is 65 and older. So we have a population of 14,146 that the health department is using. So that's a round number of close to 3,000 in that category. So what we're working on is obviously, lobbying the state for more vaccine first and foremost, trying to get our allotment, get our allocation to the region, and again, that's out of our control, but still continue to make the case, because what we're trying to do is, like every other community, 169 towns in Connecticut, create as many locations as we can and put these clinics, vaccination clinics together to vaccinate 75 years and residents 75 years and older. So we're focused on the senior center. That's why I've asked Jesse to come on the call tonight. I think they've done a phenomenal job in just a rush to get the coordination done, and done a remarkable job. So we've been able to start that vaccination process, and it really is going to be about sustainability. So vaccines is one part of it. Getting the vaccine, having enough vaccinators to administer the vaccination is another. So the physical layout in the senior center works, and we're at a point where we can do 50 in a day. We're hoping that we can get a more supply and do upwards of 80 and possibly 100. And remember, these clinics are open clinics, so they're not exclusive to North Branford residents only. It's just it's the way the state is focused and handing out or dispersing the vaccine that they want open clinics. So you may have heard the other bottleneck is the registration system known as VAMS, in which people have to go in to enter into that system. So we've got a two-pronged approach, and I'll let Jesse dive in here and take it in terms of our approach is not only helping seniors in terms of getting a clinic established at the senior center, but also trying to set up what we're going to call registration clinics to help seniors who may not be technologically, comfortable and don't have an email, that we're going to walk them through the whole registration process and try to get them into the system so that they can get set up for vaccination. And there's a lot going on behind the scenes to do that. So I'll let Jesse speak to that, and that we're, availability. We're trying to get as many as our residents in, and they may find themselves going to Madison or Branford around, trying to keep them as close as we can. And of course, if we can get them into North Branford and our senior center, great. But there are only going to be 50 slots per week if we can hopefully sustain that. And I do want to say a thank you to the people that have volunteered in the community, that have answered the call to step up and to get trained and to come into the Medical Reserve Corps and be able to participate and serve at these clinics and give the shot. So with that, I'll pause and ask Jesse to kind of explain what we're going through and what kind of a response we've had with our senior population. Jesse, would you mind taking it from there?
Sure, no problem, Michael. So we've been fielding lots of calls daily in regards to signing up. One of the things we did was we set up a pre-registration system on MyRec. So any senior who calls us, we try to register them in our system. And if they need assistance getting through that registration process, if they don't have an email address or don't have a cell phone or computer ability, we've been taking care of that for them. So we ask for their information. We help set up the email address. We take care of the registration for them. So we tell them to show up at Tuesday at 9:30, and that's all they have to worry about. And we do the rest of the worrying for them to make sure that everything is all set and as smooth and seamless as possible. We've partnered with the libraries, who are also going to be willing to field calls and help people get through this registration process. If anybody sat through it, the online system, it requires an email, then a confirmation, and a few back and forth. So registration takes on average about 20 minutes to go through it completely. And the other part of that is there's a 2 to 3 hour, or I shouldn't say 2 to 3 hour, it can be up to 12 to 24 hour validation period for your account online. So it's a little bit of a complex system, but if people are able to pre-register on our site or give us a call, we've been able to help seniors through. So we have 42 over 75 on that list that have all gone through for vaccines. I believe we have 3 that are going for tomorrow's vaccine clinic in Branford. And then everybody on that list will pretty much be through. Unfortunately, the clinic we had scheduled for today was canceled due to the weather, but all of those appointments were rescheduled for next Tuesday. So nobody lost an appointment, which is something unusual. Most towns throughout the state and on VAMs have been canceling appointments. We really felt strongly that that shouldn't happen, and we did everything in our power working with the health department to make this as seamless for the people who did have appointments. So we're looking forward to registering more. The governor is talking about rolling the 65 plus out, which Mike discussed. So we're encouraging people to register with us so that we can let you know when clinics are happening. So if you pre-register on our site, with your email address and a cell phone number, we can send you a text that says, hey, registration is opening up for a clinic here in North Branford next week. So we can keep you posted on all of the most current information of what's going on for vaccine clinics in our area. One really important thing to note, if you can pass the word along, is our clinics will be on Tuesdays from 9:30 to 1:30. They are closed. They're open clinics for registration, but they're closed in a sense that you have to have an appointment for them. In order to have an appointment, you have to have the online VAM system. But registration for those clinics opens on Thursdays at noon. With the online VAM system, 12:30 is the opening. I know we spent almost 30 minutes waiting for it to open ourselves just this past or 2 Thursdays ago. But our clinics and Guilford's clinics open Thursdays at 12. Branford, Madison, and East Haven open on Mondays at noon for that week. So they're only opening up the clinics for the week. So if you hear people saying that there aren't clinics or they're not seeing clinics available, they need to check back at that Thursday at 12 and that Monday at 12 slot, and you'll see additional clinics opening up weekly. We're doing this to ensure that people have access to those second appointments when that becomes accessible to them. And it also helps to ensure that those spots aren't being filled by completely out-of-towners. It helps us prioritize some of the North Branford residents because we're able to get on and get those people registered. So the last clinic we had, over 50% of it was North Branford residents. And I'll be happy to answer any questions that anybody has in regards to this.
Great, thanks, Jesse. Yeah, it's I think a great point that for when the 65 and don't wait, I guess, is if you have questions and you want to get prepped, we can help get that email set up before that is actually gone live. So there I think it's important we'll be able to take calls and help people even before the governor gives it the green light. But I just again want to say that Jessie and her department really pulled together. Done a great job in trying to educate the public, and we'll continue. We're just scratching the surface here, and again trying to ramp this up. And again, I hope that we'll have the sustainability with enough vaccinators to be able to do this. But I think you can all, do the math and look at the numbers. We're going to be in this for a long time. What we're hoping is the state will allow us to ramp up and do 100 or more, per clinic. Otherwise, it's going to take a long time to get through the numbers.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. I just had a quick, sorry, Bob. I just had a quick question, Mike. Where do we stand with all of our police officers and first responders? Have they all began the process?
Yeah, I don't have a firm number, but it's a great question, Ron. I think we can get that out to you in an email. I know that the second ones, I think the second vaccinations for some of them rolled around, I think this week. So they'll be getting that. But I think we've tried to get everybody in on the first responders, plus the folks working the clinics as well. So I think, and Jesse or Anthony's actually on the call, so he may have that number, and if not, we can get that out tomorrow. But I think we've done pretty good. What I understand, we've done pretty well in terms of getting our first responders done.
Great,
yeah,
thank you.
That's correct. All of the, I would say 99% of the 1A personnel have at least their first one. As Mike had mentioned, a bunch of them are going tomorrow for shot number 2. And that will address, I would say, the lion's share of our 1A personnel. And then after the 75 and 65, the other fire department members that'll be 1B personnel will be going. So probably sometime in March, I imagine.
Excellent. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Thanks, Anthony. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Anthony, what's the difference between 1A and 1B? I'm just curious. Or anyone.
the 1A personnel are the primarily the EMTs or the EMRs that are involved in patient care with a greater risk of catching the problem. So the 1B would be our non-emergency medical firefighters, fire police, things along that line.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I think what we'll hear is a further clarification on the definition going forward after 75 and older, and then 65, and again, we're waiting to see, waiting to hear how the other future rounds will be defined as to, you know, what population, what grouping. There's obviously a lot of talk about teachers. We're in the middle of winter, public works, you name it. There's a large groups after 75 and 65, but even just getting through 65 and older is going to be a tall order. And again, I'm just hoping, keeping fingers crossed, we can ramp up.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on. Mike, you have anything else to say?
No, I think Jesse covered it quite well. Again, we'll do just if people are listening and they see it, you know, if you know somebody needs assistance, don't hesitate to call, and we'll help walk them through the process and get them into the system. It's not an easy process, and it can be frustrating. So, you know, we're here to help.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Mike. Next, we'll move into community events and presentations. First, we have Brian Oberlin from Arcadis presentation regarding the difference between clerk of the works, and owner's project manager, OPM. Brian?
Yeah, yep. And so Brian is on the call from Arcadius, and Brian, welcome. And I hope that the information was somewhat helpful for the council members, and we've talked about this, and I think Brian can hopefully give clarification and also answer any questions you may have as we work through various projects. Obviously, a big high school project down to the PD, and then of course the masonry brickwork over at MBIS. But Brian is someone who's familiar with North Branford, having worked on the libraries, and so Brian, I appreciate your joining the call. If you just want to unmute, you can kind of jump in and give us a breakdown of how we sort through the definitions and scopes and all of the different titles.
Sure. Well, thanks for having me, everyone. It's nice to be seen and be here, and I look forward to sort of, you know, doing my best to describe a lot of this to you. And I put together an agenda and a little breakdown, you know, as a helpful unit, but I think that there's probably a lot of questions here that folks want to ask. So, you know, I worked in the town when we were working on the libraries. You know, we worked with, you know, all sorts of different folks throughout here, and Fran and Tom Cowell and Michelle Knockwood and a whole list of other folks. So, you know, I'm sort of here today. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm not here to, you know, give you a presentation pitch for you to hire us. You know, my understanding is you folks are trying to have some time to figure out, you know, what makes sense for you and your program, and how you can go about, you know, not only crafting those services, but deciding what it is and what's the difference, right? So I guess I'll start with just saying that essentially, depending on where you are is depending on the difference of what it's called, right? So in Massachusetts, under state law up there, it's called OPM, Owner's Project Manager. The state of Connecticut identifies it as construction administrator, and they always have a construction administrator on any of their projects facilitated by the state of Connecticut through DAS Construction Services. Then you have municipalities and towns like yourselves that, you know, may need some eyes and ears on a job, and sometimes it's called clerk of the works, and sometimes it's called owner's representative, and sometimes it's called owner's project manager. So I think when it comes to what it's called is not as important as what you receive for services, and how that person or persons can help you throughout the process. So, I know Rusty's here, and I've worked with QAM in the past, and Rusty and his crew is going to do a great job for you, no question. And it's not about the construction administration that they're going to provide. It's about the day-to-day sort of inner workings of a project, and especially a project of this type in regards to the high school, where you have an occupied sort of phased renovation going into, the construction process, where, the town, I believe, in my experience, needs someone. Any town or municipality needs someone to be the person on the site to review the daily issues that occur on site, whether it is making sure that the buses get in and out on time and that construction activities aren't impeding that process, or that you are redefining mustering points for your fire drills, to all of the things that are on the docket for daily construction, quality control, schedule management, cost control, and really it's an augment to the architect and the rest of the design team, because generally they're not there every single day, and we can build strong relationships as working as a team to make sure that any municipality and really it's an augment to the architect to get into a situation where you didn't get the product you thought you were going to, or it wasn't in the time that it needed to be, or that the cost overruns were great, right? So in regards to what they can provide in the packet, you'll see that they can provide, and I'm going to modify my agenda a little bit because I sort of understand a little better now of where things are. But the idea is really to have someone on site that can then deal with the day-to-day site issues with in regards to what they and help facilitate the town's sort of desire to get things done either in a certain way or to get a change order approved. And a lot of this stuff has to do with time and money, right? And a lot of it, time is money. And so being able to make timely decisions or pick up the phone and call the architect and bring in the team when things happen and we need to adjust, or a project needs to adjust, or it needs to pivot to deal with an issue. That's really where these services sort of come into play and becomes like an extension of the town. And, there would be reports that would be given, and there would be, goals set and things of that nature. And I know there's a lot of, different levels of service that can be provided. So, what I'm here just to do is try to lay some of that out for you and tell you, an owner's project manager really can do a lot of things for you. Now, the town has already done a lot of great things. You got Rusty and his team on board. You are, moving forward, and you may not need, all the pre-construction services and vetting and all those types of things. But there are things that you may need help with, and, OSCGR, some of those approval processes, those submissions, whether it is, the initial ones that the design team does when they first get the project approved, or whether it is as you work through and develop FF&E and getting those approved for FF&E and technology and doing that. And then, who's going to place all of that stuff? Who's going to locate it? Who's going to, make sure that as the deliveries are brought in, that they're coordinated, not only with the contractor's schedule, but also with the town's schedule and sort of, the inventory of the process. Yes, the design team is going to design the best stuff for you and meet the criteria of your ed spec. They're going to support you. They're definitely going to go ahead and, come in at the end and take a look at the furniture and make sure that, everything's up to snuff and all of that. But there's a lot of things that go on the day-to-day activity, like I said, including schedule management and cost that, I think that in our experience, we have seen that this is repetitively done, and it's because there is value. That value is brought apart by, looking into the specification. The contractor may pass a change order to you guys and say, hey, look, this is what you owe us, or you owe us this because of X. The on-site person would get that, whoever that person is, and would go through it and review the specs and the drawings and go through it and take the architect's comments, or maybe not even put it up to the architect and say, look it guys, I don't know, what you're saying here, but you own this asphalt according to this specification, and sort of enforce the rules that you all put out and your design team put out that is in the specification. And so on the list that I gave you, it sort of breaks it down by phase. I hope you all have this. I've taken off the cover page, but it's sort of a breakdown. We have classified it as owner's project manager because my understanding is that was everyone's understanding. So I wanted to use nomenclature that everyone understood. And then clerk of the works, right? So a typical clerk of the works in the past, was a person that maybe retired from a town that worked in the agency, or a person that was a retired building official or something of that nature, someone who would sit there on the job and sort of keep tabs of things, right? Well, there's no reason why you can't do that, and there's no reason why a firm can't also provide you that level of service depending on what you want. And a lot of it is about how you craft the RFP, what you put in there, and in all instances, what you're paying for is people's professionalism, their professional sort of experience, and their qualifications. And also, most importantly, you're paying for time, right? Any of us go to work and we're paid for the time. Our companies expect us to come in and provide a product, but it's based on the hours that we put in, and that's how our salaries are derived, right? So this is no different. And in the instance of dealing with a $66 million, I might have gotten that number not 100% correct, but $66 million project, there's a lot of things that need to be done, and there's a lot of management that needs to happen on the day-to-day basis, So with that, I don't want to go on too much and bore you with, industry type terms and the like. So I can keep talking and sort of break some of these things down if that's appropriate. Or I can take questions as far as what my experience is. I want to do this in a way that makes sense and uses the time wisely and gets you folks all the information that you're really looking for. That's really what I'm here to do, is to try to help you sort of break that down. So I don't know what would be the appropriate thing. If someone wants to provide a comment, then I'll go on that path, or I can just sort of break down some of the scope of work items that would happen on a day-to-day basis.
Brian, I think we have, it's Bob Viglione, I think we have a lot of questions that need to be answered. I don't know if you just want to do that, let them ask you questions and...
Sure, I'll do my best, Bob. Absolutely, that's why I figured I'd open it up that way. Yep.
Okay. Anybody?
Yes, Mayor, if I could. So, I mean, just reading this at face value, it looks like the clerk of the works appears to be redundant in all areas when you compare it to the OPM. Is that correct? I mean, that's my taking it at face value. It looks like an OPM would be an all-encompassing, hold our hand through this, through everything, and that clerk of the works might be redundant. Is that correct, or is there any value in addition added?
So you wouldn't have both, and if you hired a firm or a company, to do this type of work, that oversight would be done by the company, and then any of these items that are on here, pre-construction, construction, whatever it may be, whatever you choose, they would execute those functions. So that person, like if you hired one of my competitors, let's say, they would give you a project manager and someone on site. That person on site would be a project manager, someone that has project experience, that has been through, numerous school projects and sort of has those chops about what happens when. So you wouldn't need both. It would be sort of one or the other. And like I said, clerk of the works is sort of older nomenclature, if you will.
So is there a difference between a construction manager, a company that you hire to, because we've had a presentation from a construction management company. So is there a difference between that and an OPM and clerk of the works, or are they all three doing the same job?
Sure. So The construction manager and the construction manager at risk is the person who holds the contracts, right? They work for you essentially under a master agreement where they agree to build X, Y, and Z construction for X dollars. And the at-risk part is where that construction manager will hold all the contracts for all the subcontractors. And the town, municipality, would enter into a contract with them saying that you are the builder, you shall build, you shall manage all of your subcontractors and make sure that we meet the deadlines and timelines that are outlaid in there. The owner's project manager, or construction manager as the state calls it, or in some instances a clerk of the works, is the person that you employ to make sure that the construction manager is doing everything that they need to do, that they're following the schedules, that they are maintaining that, they're accelerating if they need to be told to accelerate, and that person would bring that owner's project manager or construction administrator would, photo logs, daily reports, things, and bring a report monthly, to a permanent school building committee. So for instance, in Groton, we're doing this right now. We go to the PBSC meeting every 2 weeks and we give them a report, right? Not only on finances, but progress, change orders, decisions they have to make, the matrices that need to be filled out, the importance of timeliness with some decisions, especially in regards to OSCGR and getting change orders in and those types of items, to make sure that the town is going to get the largest reimbursement from the state that they can, and all those items become eligible. So construction manager and let's call it OPM is different, and they're not overlapping services, they're separate services. One is working for you in your interest, where the construction manager is essentially doing that, but they're trying to make profit and make sure that they have a financial or a fiduciary obligation also to their subcontractors. And you'll hear them say that, which isn't bad because, they're representing a lot of people, but they're not solely representing the town and sort of, pushing that agenda and working that out. And also the construction administrator or owner's project manager would work with the design team and the engineers and, at the times hold them also accountable for, deadlines, deliveries, most contracts. And if you look at the AIA, the architect has a certain number of days to respond. I happen to have been on projects where we've had difficulty with that. And, the importance of keeping that time and keeping that timeliness is, if the contractor, it takes away any claim of delay for them of saying, well, you didn't answer this within X number of days, and according to my contract, you had to do that. So here's a change order, not only for time, which costs money, but also potentially money itself.
Could you still explain the difference between an owner's rep service and an OPM? Because now I see down here, we've got two potential RFPs for owner's rep. Are they synonymous or not?
Yes, ma'am. They're synonymous, and it's really how you can call it whatever you really want. You can call it owner's rep, you can call it owner's project manager, and in the case of the state of Connecticut, you would call it construction administrator. That's the way they put it on the street. But it's really about the services that you're asking for, and the specificity of that really drives cost and what you are asking them to do. And the more clear you are, the better level of service you can expect to get, because you've told them specifically what you want them to do.
Brian, how you doing? It's Ron Policia. Just reviewing some of the information you gave us, and it says that you note in here, it's important to pay close attention to the level of effort proposed for the fees, which is kind of what you were just talking about there. And when we go through the chart of all the services provided, there's, I'm going to say maybe like 50 different categories there. So if we're putting together the level of effort that we want, do we get, we're not in the construction field, so how do we know what to ask for and what level of effort we actually want? Where would we begin to to explore that and realize, because then there's also the warning in here that they may come in at a lower level of effort because it brings the cost down, right? So that they can get the contract. But then as they go along, they say, well, no, you actually need a higher level of effort. And now the bills start adding up because now we have to start paying for that higher level of effort. So how can we begin to structure this in a way that we know it's a pretty solid number and that's not going to happen to us moving forward?
Sure. So, I think there's a lot of great publications out there, first of all, and, some of them are the Construction Managers Association of America. I think the IAA has some commentaries about it. I know that the Michelle Knockwood and the agency that she's involved in, kind of talks about specificity of all that. But, ultimately, I mean, look, I've worked in the town before, right? So I feel like I want to help. And in a way, I'm happy to sort of talk about that more specifically. And I don't know if you want to get into that now, but I'll give you a quick brief overview, okay? So, probably the most important thing is you need to define the time, right? What's the expectation? Do you expect someone to be there every day? To look at to be your person that's on site, to schedule with Tom Cowell the inspections, to call the fire marshal and get them lined up, to do the necessary things with the Board of Ed to make the decisions about whatever those items are, to monitor the work, track weather delays, look at incidents on the job site, the number of men, and a lot of that unfortunately really is to protect you in the case of that someone makes a claim against the town and or your project, right? Because that's where things can get out of control. So I think you start by defining, what you want to have on site. And the reason why I say that that's super important, because you may get one quote from a firm and it's like, oh, this is, let's use an arbitrary number. It's $1 million, right? You may get another quote and it's $2 million, right? Now you're looking at it and you're saying, oh, we're going to go with the $1 million, right? Because this one's $2 million. But when you read through, if you haven't specified, they may be only giving you a half-time person. They may not have a professional scheduler. They may not have carried the furniture, fixtures, and equipment as far as managing all of those deliveries and whatnot. So I think a lot of it is about talking about what you want on site, what you need help with, what you feel you need help with. I could come back and talk to you, or I could talk to you now about, sort of what those items would or could be. We could also look at sample RFPs. And I know Michelle has a lot of access to some of these things. And your surrounding towns, the town of Groton we're working in right now, the city of Hartford, we happen to be working there. But there are many other towns and municipalities that work with a lot of our competitors too. And this is not about us. It's about really the town and that development. So you're protected, your project is successful, you make the most reimbursement from the state that you can. But when you're looking at those proposals, you're making sure that the $1 million guy is carrying the same thing as the $2 million guy. Because if not, then, the value of money is sort of broken there, right? Because it's not about the amount of dollars. It's about, it's $1 million. Here's one gold widget. But for $2 million, you're getting 42 gold widgets. You know what I mean? So that's sort of where it comes down. So all of those sort of professional industries and agencies are out there with a lot of this guidance. Like I said, the group that Michelle's involved in, and then, you could look to your other neighbors and some of the things that they've put on the street and what they've asked for. For instance, Branford, not that long ago, we worked with them on their town center, their senior center that they put up, and their RFP was very specific, and the scope was pretty limited. They only wanted people there 1 or 2 days a week, and they wanted a simple report each month. And, any of the firms that are qualified to do this work that can meet a quals-based selection. So you put out and say, prove to us you know how to do this. Prove to us you've worked on schools. And once they do that, then you get down to breaking down the cash. But as far as where those publications exist, that would be your best start. And I could also help with that and show some things to you folks if that was appropriate.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Brian, Walt Gold, how are you?
Good to, excuse me. Good to see you, sir. How are you?
Good. Brian, so it sounds to me like you're saying that we would need a management company and we would need a OPM, clerk of the works. That's the tip. You would need both.
No, sir.
No.
No. One company would sort of fulfill all those services, right? So let me use a recent example of something. The masonry project in town, right? I happened to bid on that, and a lot of other people bid on that, right? And that was a general oversight role to look at the masonry, right? And that's showing up to the site and doing that. But if in the case of a school, you would have whatever firm it was. Like, let's say I was assigned as the senior person, right? I would come to the meetings, I would do what I needed to do, but you would have a person on site full time from my company, from my staff, let's say, that would be in the trailer out there every day, right? And so it's one firm, one contract, essentially, to make sure that you are fulfilling both needs, if you will.
So we wouldn't need our own person. We wouldn't need a clerk of the works then.
Correct, sir.
So a management company like yourself would be able to would do the whole soup to nuts, everything.
Yes, sir. That's how it would work. Now, and that's for much larger projects. And like I said, don't forget these terms are fairly synonymous when you talk about owner's project manager,
right,
construction administrator, and clerk of the works. Really, where my industry kind of started really was clerk of the works, right? Where people saw the value in having someone there to say, whoa, wait a second, this isn't what the town is paying for, right? And so it's really a spawn of that. So I don't want you all to get confused with the terms, knowing that you're hiring a person, a firm, whatever it may be, to represent you on site. And it's one firm, one person, one contract to execute that function.
So if our town was to use a company like yours, what percentage would we expect to pay for we'll say, the Cadillac plan, where you guys would take care of everything? Like what would be the percentage of that?
Sure. I would say that in the industry, if you're talking about full-time person on site, you're talking about schedule review, management of the process all the way around, you can be 2%, 3%, sometimes as low as 1%. It really depends on the scope of the project, the duration of the time, what's really involved. I mean, there's a lot of that, but you all have the power to really manage that and manage the spend by defining scope, right? And saying, okay, we do want the person on site every day. We don't care about the fluff. We trust our architect and we're good. We're good with the pre-designed stuff. We don't need any of your help. They're going to do all the budget stuff. We don't need estimates from you. We don't need you to review stuff or reconcile. We don't need you to do schedule review or whatever it may be. And you can kind of, you can narrow the scope or broaden the scope. And that also narrows the cash or broadens the cash, right? On what you're really going to spend. And most of this is about risk management. It's about making sure that the building that's built at the end of the day provides the value that the town paid for, not only in the physical structure of it itself, but also the life cycle of the building. Is it going to be 50 years? Is it going to last 100 years? What's your design parameters? And and so you have the power to move that needle one way or the other on the percentage side. So it's sort of a hard question to answer very specifically, and I don't want to be wishy-washy, but that's basically what I would say.
Well, this is probably going to be the biggest project our town has ever done, so I'm sure we want to do it all right. So we're probably looking at more of the 2%, possibly 3% range, right?
If you're going to go to soup to nuts and have the full schedule reviewer and the people on site and the management of the top end then yeah, I would say you're probably going to be somewhere in that range. You know, I'd have to see your scope when it comes out and the like to be able to define that for you a little better. But again, it's time, you know, so, you know, if you have a 24-month construction project, well, you know, that's 24 months of a person's time. If it ends up being 44 months, well, that's a little different. You know, I'm entering into a contract with the state of Connecticut as their administrator right now. It's 57 months, you know, and that 57 months is pre-designed all the way through closeout, right? And the state has all sorts of regulations on what they want to do. And there's a manual, which you can go to the state's DAS website on the DAS library. And there is an 0600 construction administrator's manual that is available to everyone, that you can see, for instance, what the state requires on their project, even though they have their own internal project manager. And I think sometimes that might be a document that will be useful for you folks. You can also look to Massachusetts in the Mass School Building Authority, or MSBA, and they require by law that all projects over a certain dollar value have they call it an OPM, and then the parameters that are defined as far as what that OPM does, right? So those two documents and two locations may be very helpful for you and the entire team here to figure out what works best for you.
Thanks, Brian. You were very, very helpful to me. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, hi, Brian. This is Tom Zampano.
Hi.
So getting back to the construction manager at risk.
Yes, sir.
What's he at risk for?
Well, I'm sorry to chuckle because it is sometimes by my sort of colleagues and we do have a chuckle about it. But I will tell you, at risk is the fact that you are paying the construction manager to hold the risk of all the contracts, right? So that is essentially when you look to how the contract is written, it is basically they're at risk for the responsibility not only of the project and the delivery of the project, but also for all of their subs, the reportings, you know, and those types of things. So if you look at how you write the construction manager at risk contract and you say, well, you know, you're at risk and you're going to hold all the contracts and you're going to be accountable for not only to us, because we are your partner as we're entering into a direct contract with you, but that is also, you know, what their overarching responsibilities are in regards to delivering the project that they bid, if that's helpful.
Okay, because you had mentioned they have a fiduciary responsibility to their subs.
Sure.
So I'm guessing that's meant for the understanding of that would be responsibility amongst the various subs, because they would have a responsibility to their customer, which would be North Branford, and it can't be a conflict of interest. I'm thinking of it from a real estate perspective. So can you just explain that fiduciary responsibility that you had mentioned?
Yeah, so, you know, like I said, I hear it from the contractors, and I think the commentary is really about, you know, there is a certain number of subs that they have an obligation to their subs to make sure that they get a fair shake, if you will. So, for instance, if you're reviewing a change order and you say, or some scope and say, well, you know, you own this and that's the deal, right? I think what they're trying to get across is, you know, these are smaller subcontractors that work in the industry. You know, they are entering into a contract with them for your project. So that fiduciary obligation has to do with the contract language between the construction manager and their subcontractor. And then, you know, the construction manager risk also has that obligation to the town. Now, the argument is always, well, you know, you work for the town first and the sub second, right? And so that is a mantra that I would support and get behind and definitely go at all in, no question. But I believe in my best, assessment. That's basically how that works, meaning that they have contracts on both sides. Not that it's a conflict of interest because they're not doing competing things. They're representing you, but they also have, contracts that they need to fulfill with those subcontractors.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, anybody else? All right, Brian,
Bob,
thank you very much.
Bob, if I could just jump in,
Sure.
not to belabor it, but I think some context or perspective, because the council also has another project. So in your expertise, Brian, and looking at this, the town goes down the route of, for the high school project, of a construction manager at risk. The architect's already in place. The next, or the only missing piece we're talking about here is the town's representative, or the owner's representative, or clerk of the works, whatever you want to call it. It's really dependent on the scope and what you want that person or firm to do. And at the level of the high school at 66 million, it's more complex, obviously a lot more complex. And I think to put it into perspective, that when you look at a smaller project, a $7 million, PD project, perhaps you don't need a construction manager at risk, and maybe it's overkill there, and maybe just a general contractor with a clerk of the works gets that job done. And again, it's all about the scope of what you need, and then again, that's maybe an 18-month project, 2-year project. And I think, just putting it into perspective, does that make sense in the totality of things?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does. And I think that, again, it's back to that nomenclature, but, it all depends on what you want to achieve. I think a general contractor on a $7 million project should be more than suffice. You're going to enter into a single contract with them as long as your documents are solid. You don't run into a lot of issues. And then as far as the person being on site, whether you call them clerk of the works or you call them owner's project manager, I think that's almost irrelevant of what you call them, as long as you're defining the scope, right? For $7 million project, you may say, there's no need to have someone here every day, right? I mean, that's the reality of the situation. We need a contact. We want someone to come by a couple days a week and report on progress, right? And then give us a report on the financials at the end of the month and sort of work through that. That's one way of doing it. Yeah, so it's what you're saying, Michael. It makes all the sense in the world. Like I said, I don't want to get stuck on nomenclature with whether we call them owner's project manager or clerk of the works. Because I think that they provide the same scope of services. It's just about the time that you ask them to participate. And one other thing I'll say, so if you look at the masonry job, right, you folks put out a masonry job, you collected all the bids, and that was a pretty limited scope, right? And the number ended up being $19,000 or so of work for that limited period of time. So it was time and what you asked them to do, you put that out. You got qualified, responses. You made sure that they were qualified. And then you chose the person that made the most sense to you, whether that was the low fee or the most qualified, or maybe that was one and the same. But you can scale this thing up and down however you want to do it, based on the size and scope of your project.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Brian, thank you very much. You answered a bunch of questions that I was concerned about, and I'm sure everybody else here too. So we really appreciate it. And thank you again.
Yeah, no problem. And if you guys need something, I mean, just reach out. Like, I feel like, the libraries were a successful project, and I do this, and I'm part of these, professional groups and teaching in the industry. And so, I'm happy to help in any way that I can. And like I said, I know Rusty and his team at QAM can definitely provide some guidance on this as well. So happy to support you if you need it, and feel free to give me a jingle.
Okay. Thank you again.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's move into citizen statements and petitions and correspondence. Michael, do you have anything? Anthony?
I have something, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Who's that, Bill?
Bill Savastano,
Sure, go ahead, Bill.
Sunnyside Drive. Just a couple of updates. First of all, Happy New Year, everyone. I haven't seen you since last year. Good job by Public Works. Sunnyside Drive looks a lot better than my driveway right now. Again, a couple of reminders. You know, a lot of these meetings are on Zoom and they're being taped. And obviously, it's great. But I've mentioned before that I think commissions like the Park and Rec, Fire, and Police should be all, now that they're on Zoom, they can be easily archived into YouTube. So, and down the road, let's remember now, we give Public Access TV $12,000 this year to help out their efforts. So we can get that once we get back into in-person meetings. Should be able to certainly continue on with that. A couple of years ago, Tatucket Road, 944, you might remember, you had that remediation problem with that big piece of property. Went on for about a year. Then you guys signed off on it. It was all contingent on the grass. The grass grew and the guy moved his equipment out of there. Well, I don't know if the grass grew, but the equipment is still there. And that's in my neighborhood. That means every day I leave my place, go down the road, go towards Forest Road there. I got to see a industrial park in the residential zone. Remember, you know, someday we're going to get, we haven't talked about blight in just about a year, right? More. And we'll get back to it someday. But now we're putting out all this money for all the buildings, and that's fine and well. But let's remember all our taxpayers' money. Let's not go back on services. It's going to be even more important now, especially, you know, we haven't recovered from this COVID thing. You know, the after effects of people's and their lives and jobs and homes. So let's get something in place. You know, you had Carrie leave from planning and zoning, and according to what Mike put out a couple of weeks ago, you're going to have somebody else leaving after many years. Maybe we can latch onto a couple of these. Well, of course, not Carrie, but somebody else might be leaving in the zoning enforcement position. Need more enforcement out there. To do something with blight, you're going to need more enforcement. And not because of blight, because it's out there. The blight is out there. And people are getting away with it. And one reason is because they kind of know there's no enforcement. So if you do one, we got to do the other. Especially now you're asking the people to pay more taxes. There's an article in the New Haven Register. We talked about trash last week. An article from about Mira and what's going on in the industry about recycling and costs. And just a point of mention, I don't know if anybody read it. It wasn't anything that a lot of us on the committee didn't know, but that's out there and constantly being talked about. We get articles every day from Hartford. The police building down the road, again, we don't know what we're doing with that building right now. But as we've thought before in the past, some of these older buildings, maybe we can use it for a professional building. You know, from the front side, you could make maybe 2 offices in there, professional office or even 1. But if you go around the back side, you could gut the whole basement out, and maybe we could use it for a sports museum, a veterans council chamber, a veterans museum. Meanwhile, the professional people would be paying for the rent and the upkeep on the building. And you're going to be talking about a few more RFPs tonight. And I know that the RFP for the trash went out. It's going to be in the Sound this week. I'm just kind of surprised that it was only going to be one day in the Sound. and not the New Haven Register. I know we don't want to be hunting for a trash person up in East Oshkosh somewhere, but couldn't we afford to put it in the New Haven Register? That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Bill.
Mr. Mayor, there is one comment on Facebook.
Okay, go ahead, Ian.
Judy Bannon, when registering in the VAMs, there is not a selection for the 65 plus age group, only the 75 and older. How do we register in advance for that age group, as was just discussed? What I can do is I can contact East Shore Health and have them reach out to Judy.
Yeah, Anthony, I'm not sure there is any way to pre-register, but we'll check with East Shore. I think it's more of a prepping individuals on what they might need. Like, for instance, if they don't have an email, good to get that set up before. This could be announced next week. It could be 2 weeks, but get ready, be prepared, and whatever else information you may need to. Maybe maybe you can't find something in town. You have to transportation to Branford or something like that. So. But anyway, we'll check with East Shore. Thank you.
Gotcha.
And Mr. Mayor, I don't have anything on public comment email, but I do have the email that was sent earlier that I sent from Adonna Pursley, a letter that the council all should have. I could read that, but I think you all have that. It was related to the P&Z meetings and the wedding and entertainment.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Michael and Anthony. All right. Let's move into resignations and appointments. First, we have resignation of Jan Finch from Economic Development Commission. No action needed.
If I could just, I think to say thank you for her years of service. Jan has been very active and contributed a great amount. And I did say so Monday night at the meeting, and just want to, I think, say thank you for her service.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Jan. Okay. Next, we have the appointment of Al Rose to the Permanent Project Building Committee.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Al Rose to the Permanent Project Building Committee, and he would be representing the group of building and construction with a term to expire November 30th, 2021.
Second.
Okay. Who seconded?
Tommy did and I did, Bob.
Okay, Michelle, did you get that?
No. I really didn't. So, Rose, could you just say again the term to expire is, did you say January?
No, November 30th, 2021.
30th, 2021. Okay. So that was Angeloni to everyone else, seconded by everyone.
I guess, sounds good. It was either Joe or Tommy, whatever name you want to put down.
Oh, well. There's little reactions at the bottom. Someone can raise their hand.
Let's do Joe. Joe.
Okay. Councilor Fawnin, perfect.
Okay. Any further discussion? Can we have a vote?
Absolutely. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain.
I would just like to say thank you, Al, for stepping up and being a part of this committee. The council certainly welcomes your input in these two major projects that we have going on.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if we want to let him go so soon as November of 2021.
Don't worry, we'll reappoint him.
Okay, sounds good. All right, next we'll move into unfinished business, discussion and action. First we have review and approval of revised bid specifications for RFP/Q number 4, 2020-2021 for OPM. And this was tabled from January 5th of 2021.
Okay, so my question on this one was, when you look at it, it says it's OPM for various construction projects. And then we have all these other OPMs for very specific construction projects. So
Yeah.
what are we looking for?
I think we just carried these, they were tabled. I think the proper action would be no action on either A or B, so that we can move down to the other more specific RFPs for the various projects.
So we're not going to continue to table them. We're just going to delete them.
Right. Take no action. Right. And I think unless David, really, if in terms of dispensing with this, we're just going to let it die on the table or take no action and then we can take it off, or do we have to dispense? What's the proper way to dispense with these so we can take them off the agenda?
No, I think you can just say no action is taken and that's fine. I mean, that's, no action was taken. They're taken off the agenda. They would only have to be put back. The only way to get them back on the agenda if somebody puts them back on the agenda. So just no action is taken. They're withdrawn without action.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to remove items 12A and B with no action and remove them from the agenda.
Second.
Okay, motion was made by Councilor Angeloni, seconded by Councilor Diamond, I believe.
Yes.
Was that you? Okay, any further discussion? Okay, can we have a vote, Michelle, please?
Yes, you may, Mr. Mayor. With all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Okay, that was quick. Okay, next we'll move to number 13, new business discussion and action. The first is discussion and action on naming of the dog park and allocated funds for town sign. This has to do with Dr. Osorio. Go ahead, Rose, you want to?
Right. So I talked to the mayor in regards to putting this on on our agenda. Dr. Osorio has been, he is a partner, was a partner in Veterinarian Associates in North Branford, has been a business in town for over 45 years, and recently passed due to COVID complications. Dr. Osorio has contributed a lot to the community. He did a lot of work with the police dogs, previous with Dave Dansico and with one of the other officers who had a police dog, and he donated a lot of his time in caring for the animals. And I know a lot of people, and there's several council members that have gone to Dr. Osorio, and actually someone reached out to me who has a business in town. Also, she is on tonight on our Zoom and has asked if anything was going to be done, and this is how the whole thing started. And so the person that reached out to me is Candace Milliard, who is on. She has a business, a floral creation business, and she is very much interested in doing a fundraiser to take, besides just the sign, the town sign that's this would be put on Route 22, is to have a fundraiser so that they can have more of a sign dedicated to Dr. Efren Osorio, with a bio, his picture, and also I know that when the dog park was instituted by the group of residents in town who held a fundraiser and got the whole thing started, that there were still some things that they would like to see in the dog park. And so Candace and I have been emailing back and forth that depending on how much funds that they raise, that the rest of the money after the sign is done can also be used for things in the dog park. So I would like to make a motion to name the dog park. And for those that are not familiar with it, it is located next to the Auger House in the Auger Barns. There is a piece of property that has been fenced in. All of the work that has been done there so far has been paid for by money that was raised by the group of residents that formed this group to do fundraising for the dog park. So that's where it's located. So I would like to make a motion to name the dog park the Osorio Dog Park. and also that the town funds the sign that would be put on 22 so that it's consistent with all of the other signs that we recently put up around by all the parks and everything else. So that's my motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, who was that?
Ron.
Ron. I just want to say something too. I had a fellow in my shop today talking about this, talking about the doctor. And I had dealings with him myself probably 20 years ago. Great guy, great guy. And the fellow came in today and you know, I got talking to him about it and possibly naming the dog park after him. And the first thing he said to me is, he said, I'd like to make a donation. Can I give a donation to the town? I said, no, but there is going to be there's an organization that is going to be looking for donations. So what I have to do is I'll get it from you later on, Rose. I'll get her name and, you know, where any money has to be sent. And there's been, in the last 2 weeks, there's been a bunch of people that have come in and have been very upset about him passing away. I believe he was 63 years old and with the virus, COVID, too young to be dying, and a real great guy. All right, I just wanted to do that. Where am I now here? Rose, you made the motion?
Yes.
Ron Palicia second it. Any further discussion on this?
I'd just like to add, I'm sorry, just.
Sure.
Our family's been going to him for 20 years for 2 different animals, and he's gone out of his way time and time again to help us and work with our animals. And for those that didn't know him, you could tell he loved his job, always had a smile on his face, was just a good human being, and a terrible loss for this town. And I think this is an honor that is well deserved. So that's all.
I agree. Thank you, Ron. Okay, the motion was made by Councilor Angeloni, seconded by Councilor Palicia. Any further discussion? Okay, can I have a vote, please, Michelle?
Or all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Go
Mr.
ahead, Rose.
Mayor, I just, I see Candy Milliard is still on. Is there
Okay.
anything that you would like to say in regards to this? Can you hear us?
Candace?
You'll have to unmute too.
Oh, there she unmuted.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
I'm crying. I'm sorry, I'm a mess over here. This is really great. He was, yeah. If anybody didn't know him, he was very loving. He was like everybody's dog father. And, you know, you hear the same stories. He made me feel like I was his daughter and his only client, and that he loved my dogs the most. And that's what everybody is saying. And I'm just so happy that this little town of ours is going to come together and honor him this way. And above and beyond just renaming the park, I wanted to do, you know, more of a bigger sign that has his picture and a blurb, whether it's the staff at the vet that actually writes something, but I want more people to know about him that never got to meet him. So that's something that I can fundraise and get more money. And I know, Mr. Mayor, you had said you had some people, so we can definitely connect and do something more for him.
Okay, that includes me too. Oh, okay, I'll get the information from Rose and I can hand it out in my shop.
So Candace, we'll just continue to email and we'll come up with the strategy.
Okay, perfect. I'm sorry, my internet is cutting off.
That's okay. So I'll just email you and you and I can work on something.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thanks, Candace.
You're welcome.
Okay, next.
Mr. Mayor, we just need a quick vote.
Oh, okay. I thought we did that.
We did, no, we didn't.
Yeah, we
vote?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We voted before I asked her to speak. But we can do it again if you need to.
Yeah, you want to do it again, Michelle?
Once is enough for me. I just didn't have it down here, so thanks.
Okay, that's all right. Okay, let's move on. Next, we'll do review and approval of RFP number 6, 2020-2021, Owners Representative Services for Masonry Repairs at NBIS.
Right. So this is the masonry project, and again, looking at like what we did over at the auditorium. Only obviously, this is going to be a much larger project, but still masonry work in terms of the brickwork there. So I think, again, whether we call it the owner's rep, a clerk of the works. I think we did owner's rep. We did successful. Just kind of mirrored what we did with the auditorium. And trying to get this lined up for the summer as well. So I'm not sure if there are any questions with this, but that's what we're trying to accomplish, to have oversight on this project before we line up the construction management.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve RFP number 6, 2021, Owners Representative Services for Masonry Repairs at North Branford Intermediate School.
Second.
Okay, motion was made by Councilor Angeloni, seconded by Councilor Diamond. Any further discussion? Okay, Michelle, can we have a vote?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain?
Okay. Next is review and approval of RFP number 7, 2020 to 2021, Owners Representative Service for new police department.
I'd like to make a motion for review and approval of RFP number 7, 2020-2021, Owners Representative Service for new police department.
Second.
I'm sorry, who is that?
Mike.
Oh, Mike, okay. Okay, motion was made by Councilor Diamond, seconded by Councilor Duty. Any further discussion?
I just have one question. Given our information we were given tonight, and maybe it was, but was the scope of the responsibilities considered by the committee? I know that committee's been very active and done a really good job. Or did we use just a generic RFP? Because it seems like, from what we learned tonight, it could make a big difference.
I think it's generic, but I think that many of those things have been discussed by the committee.
I know, but is this all that we want to, are these all the duties that we want to include, or is there something on here that's just here because it's generic, or is there something else that we want to add to the contract? Or can we, because the contract is Appendix A of this RFP. So if we put this out, are we bound by just this, or can it be revised before we award the, well, we can't really revise it because they're bidding on it based on these duties. So after listening to the presentation tonight, are we all prepared to say, yes, this is all that we want for the police department?
Yeah, I don't think we should use a generic form. I think this should be thought about and at least reviewed with the committee or the architect or something,
Has the town attorney looked at it?
That too.
No, so these were not provided to us to review in advance, and you can include in an RFP, something that says the contract is expected to be substantially in the form attached here too, but the town reserves the right to make changes or modifications to the contract. I don't know whether that language is in these RFPs or not. This is I saw them when I got the bid package, so.
Shouldn't these have gone to the town attorney before they come to the council for approval?
I would think so.
Well, I have a question on the evaluation, because the two different RFPs have a different valuation breakdown. For references, respondents' understanding, and cost, and interview. How could they be different percentages? Who establishes that? Is this created, or is this just take an RFP and cut and paste? Because I can't understand that.
Mayor, it's Victor Peter-Andrea. Can I speak?
Hey,
wait a minute.
Yeah, I've got some comments as well.
I like to see this thing tabled. So being on the committee, I'd like to review it further after what I just heard tonight. If that's okay.
Yeah, I would add, I think that's the right move. Talking with Bill Silver and as well, I think he certainly has some opinion. Again, if we go back to my statement, we put things into perspective. What we learned from Brian about the difference between the state funded project of the high school versus the PD, and I think having the committee take a look at it, going through, having David take a look at it as well. But I think Bill Silver's input as well as we have Rusty's input on the school side. So I don't think from a timing standpoint it's going to jeopardize anything, and I think it's the right move to make sure that we get the right scope. As Brian said, that it's not what we call it; it's how we define it and the scope. So I think there certainly is some tweaking, because I think we went off of a generic, and to Tom's point, there may be a better way to evaluate, and we want to make sure we're what's important in terms of stressing.
I personally never saw the final draft. I got asked a bunch of questions about it. I was looking forward to looking at the final draft, and then somehow it got presented tonight, and I just happened to be on the Zoom meeting tonight, so I personally definitely need more time to look at it.
So you guys are meeting next week, right?
We're meeting next Wednesday.
Yeah, so I think that's perfect timing. You guys can discuss it. It can go to the town attorney and then come back to us.
Could somebody forward all the members a copy of what they have, please? Because I got 2 texts just now, and I don't think anybody's seen it.
Okay, but I will withdraw my motion. Before I do that, I would like to say that my assumption is if the town manager put it on the agenda, it would have already been reviewed by the town attorney. And if he felt that it should have been tweaked, I don't know why it was on the agenda. I will withdraw my motion.
I'll withdraw my second.
Thanks, guys.
Okay. Michelle, you all set? I think this is the best way to do it too. Give us a little more time to look at it and figure out what's going on. Michelle, you all set with that?
I believe so, as long as you don't need a motion to table. I'm not sure of that.
There is one other point I need to make, and that is, that the criteria, the evaluating the criteria with the percentage breakdown like that, we just voted on an RFP that has one, and I guess what my question is, I know it's after the fact, but this is something that we need to pay attention to when we're creating these mics. I mean, there has to be a meaning to that. There has to be some.
Yeah, and we take a lot of consultation from Rusty and Bill and others in the field in terms of looking at placing the importance on the interview, the costs, and so forth. So an evaluation is a guideline for us in terms of putting this together, much like we did for selecting the architect.
Okay. Okay, I think I need a motion to table.
I'll make the motion to table then.
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion was made by Councilor Diamond. I'm sorry, I didn't get who seconded it.
Mike.
Mike Duty?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Thank you, Mike. Seconded by Councilor Duty. Can we have a vote, please, Michelle?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Okay.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. Thank you, Marie. Next is review and approval of RFP number 8, 2020-2021 request for proposals for commissioning service for the new North Branford High School.
Right. So maybe Rusty can explain to me and any other member of the council that doesn't really understand this is after reading this, why do we need a commissioning agent right now?
Certainly. Good evening. So part of the process in designing schools and the requirement for high performance buildings is that we are required to bring on a commissioning agent at the time of design. We're actually a little bit behind schedule on this particular item. The commissioning agent works with us and makes sure they work all the way through design, and even in terms of making sure that the systems that are being selected for the school are something that is acceptable to the users of the building, and users meaning the facility directors. For instance, we had a meeting today with John and other members to talk about the types of building systems that need to go into the building. Ideally, the commissioning agent would have been part of this discussion, but it's the preliminary discussion, so we think we'll be able to bring them up to speed on what the systems are and have them review that information as well. But this is a state requirement for high performance buildings, and it's not somebody that I can bring on. It has to be an independent party hired by the owner.
Okay. So have you reviewed, after listening to our presentation earlier this evening, so have you reviewed the scope of this project?
Absolutely.
Everything that's listed here, and
yes.
You're okay with what is listed?
Yes. We've done this on many other projects, so this is fairly standard information, and we modify it just minimally for each specific project, but this was something that we reviewed and my engineers reviewed.
Okay, so with our past experience with NBIS, which is the albatross around all of our necks that we're still dealing with, one of the issues that we've had, of course, is the commissioning. The building was commissioned, and then we had all of these issues, and then we had to recommission. And so we have talked as a council about, when they come in and they look to make sure that everything is working, they may miss a season because they come in, they put it online in the fall, and then they're like done, but we don't go through all the seasons and all of the issues. So is that something that's covered in this document, or is that further down the line?
Yeah, no, it's going to be covered in this document. The building will not be signed off in commissioning and by the commissioning agent until every system has been tested and they've observed it and they've gone through it. So if it means that the winter, the heating, the boilers aren't coming online because we're finishing a substantial completion is earlier, that portion of the commissioning will not be signed off on till it's actually done. And reviewed by the commissioning agents, because they have to write their final report and send that to us, and that's part of our closeout documents with the state. So that definitely is something that they will be doing. So you can't piecemeal it and say, okay, well, this part is not done, so we're not going to commission it. We're going to commission it all, and at the end of it will be the final report.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Councilor Angelo, can I make one suggestion though? Again, this is not something that I reviewed our office, and I noticed that in a quick review, I noticed that under the general terms and conditions, it says, this is item 7, it says, see attached schedule and contract terms and conditions for the sample agreement in the RFP. I believe that should be changed, and language should be included there that says the town reserves the right to request and make modifications to this contract so that the contract is in a form acceptable to the town, so that you're not bound by the specific contract attached to that agreement, because I haven't reviewed it. I'm assuming it's generally acceptable, but I haven't reviewed it and can tell you that the sample contract has everything in it that it should.
Can we make a motion to have this reviewed by the town attorney? This is getting a bit ridiculous.
But I'm just saying, I believe that the RFP would be okay if Rusty, as he has just said, has reviewed it substantively for what it's to be included. My point is just that the town should not be obligated to enter into the specific contract that's attached to it. We haven't reviewed it, and I had to tell that to you because I don't want you to assume that we have reviewed that contract and approved of its form.
If the contract can be reviewed, we can always issue an addendum to any modifications. I just like to get it out on the street because we're already behind schedule. But any changes can be issued as an addendum to the RFP.
So as I say, if the motion is that the RFP number 8 presented as modified to enable to state that the form of the contract to be entered into by the successful bidder must be in a form, generally in the form attached here too, but must be the town reserves the right to make modifications that are acceptable to the town. We can propose such language and get that done to you, shortly, and then I think you can proceed with the RFP. But you do want to reserve the right to make changes.
I believe that those terms and agreements were not something we produced. I think that was something that the town produced.
Okay, so then it's even more important that the sample that the language be clear in item 7 that the sample contract is only for purposes of reference only, and the town reserves to make modifications to the agreement in such manner as is acceptable to the town.
Certainly.
Okay, so can I make the motion? And I'm not going to repeat what Attorney Zabel just said. I hope Michelle can go back and listen to exactly what he said to this. But my motion is to accept RFP number 8, 2021, commissioning services for a new high school with the changes noted by Attorney Zabel to item 7, general terms and conditions. And Michelle, then if you can just kind of go back and exactly what he said.
Yeah, I will just add that the town reserves the right to make modifications acceptable to the town.
With language as suggested by the town attorney to be included.
David, wasn't it the sample contract you were concerned with as well?
Right, that's what I'm saying.
That's item 7 in the.
So what I'm saying is that item 7 in the RFP would, in essence, provide in substance that a sample contract is attached here too. The town reserves the right to modify the sample contract to include the changes or modifications in such manner as is acceptable to the town.
Great. Okay, I will second that, Rose's motion.
Okay. Okay, I have a motion made by Councilor Angeloni, seconded by Councilor Fornan. Is there any further discussion?
Wouldn't it? This is Walt Godin. Can I have the floor, Mayor?
Go ahead, Walt. Yep.
Wouldn't it be better to wait until it's totally gone over and done?
No, because he needs it.
Rusty needs it to continue on with this as part of the state requirements.
Rusty, is 2 weeks going to make that big of a difference, Rusty?
Is time going to run out?
Yeah, because we should have had the commissioning. I mean, I asked for the commissioning agent to be brought on earlier. It's this process in terms of the substance of the RFP. It's fine. It's the what you're looking at is the agreement, the terms of agreement that the town is typically produces or attaches to their contracts or their RFPs. And if the attorney needs to review that, we can certainly review it and make any modifications and issue an addendum. It's, we issue addendums all the time to RFPs because questions come back. And if there's a clarification that needs to be issued on the question, then that's issued as an addendum. So, and we can also issue addendums in the same fashion. even if there's not a question.
And the important point is that the RFP not bind you to bidders to use the specific form attached, and there would be revised language included in Section 7 to make that clear, that there is a sample contract, but the term reserves the right to make modifications to the sample contract with the successful bidder in such form as is acceptable to the town. And its sole discretion, so that bidders know that this is what they're looking for. And again, the town is not going to be unreasonable because, as Rusty points out, there's a short deadline here. But since I have not reviewed, and since we have not reviewed the sample contract, I don't want the RFP to bind you to a form of sample contract that was not provided us to review before you're bound by it.
Okay, David, so this will be safe for us?
Yes. As I said, based on what Rusty has said, that the other terms of the RFP notify the potential bidders, the interested bidders, of what is the scope of work that's going to be requested. As long, I believe the town is protected because you're not being required to enter into the sample contract, and you'll be able to then, in the final contract that you negotiate with the successful bidder, enter into a contract that's appropriate.
Okay.
What's the deadline? What deadline is there?
To bring on the commissioning agent?
Yeah.
So we were at the state on the 26th of January. At that time, we technically should have had the commissioning agent on board. We did speak to the state. We said we're in the process of doing it. So that's why I'm pushing this particular issue. If it was like the OPM where we don't need them for a while, I would have said, don't worry about it, we can delay. But this is one of those items that we really need to get going.
All right, thank you.
Do you mind if I just get clarification from Attorney Zabel? All you're saying is, yes, you believe there should be a change, but this is an RFP. It is not binding. You can adjust at what you were suggesting we adjust before we sign a contract.
Yeah, this is my concern about the RFP, as I briefly, when I scanned through it, is that there was not language in the contract that said, this is a sample contract only. The town reserves right to make changes in the eventual contract with the successful bidder in such way as is acceptable to the town. That puts any potential bidder on notice that although this is a sample that they can use for purposes of their bid, it may not be the final contract. We're going to have to enter into a contract that's acceptable to the town, and they make their bid accordingly. If the RFP had gone out the way it was, a bidder might claim you have to sign the contract in the exact form that it was attached to the RFP. And since I haven't reviewed that, I was not willing to let you go. I didn't want you to go forward with that in that way.
Attorney Zabel, would that then, if we made changes afterwards, how would that affect any bids that came in? Say I bid on it and I bid $15,000, the town makes changes, and now I'm no longer willing to do it for $15,000. What happens then?
Then we may have to go rebid the process. I don't expect that will be happening but I can't tell you. I'm sorry, I can't tell you. I can only look quickly at the contract and say, does it have everything in here that I think should be in here for the town? I don't know, because I can't do that in 5 minutes tonight.
I just want to put it out there that I'm going to abstain from this vote because I don't think the process was done appropriately.
Same here.
Okay, so I currently have that Councilor Angeloni moved, seconded by Councilor Fawnin, to accept RFP number 8, 2020-2021 for a new high school with changes to item 7, general terms and conditions, to add that the town reserves the right to make modifications to the sample contract provided in such a manner that is acceptable to the town.
If I may,
Brett?
Could the comments from the attorney be, if we can get them the next day or two, then we could issue an addendum which would be binding to the RFP, and there would be no issue in terms of any confusion about what the terms and agreements in the RFP were.
we can try to look at the agreement. I happen to have an arbitration scheduled all day tomorrow and a deposition scheduled all day Thursday. I can find out if somebody else in our firm is available to look at the contract. But I know personally myself, I've got 8 or 10 hours a day already booked for the next 2 days.
I think what I'm hearing is, basically from our position, from the town's position, we have a breakdown in process, and this all could have been avoided. And and then thinking about something else is, we're always felt like we're being pushed, and I kind of understand all the positions here, but ultimately North Branford is the customer, and I believe that's how we need to look at it. North Branford's the customer. If we're not ready, we don't have our T's crossed, our I's dotted. We have to take a position at some point, and I think maybe tonight's the night.
Okay. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, it's Walter Goat again.
Okay.
It basically just seems messy to me the way we're doing this. That's the best word I could say. It just seems messy.
Mayor,
Okay.
is it okay if I speak? I totally
Sure,
agree with what everybody's saying, what everybody's saying. And that the process probably should, before any of these come before us, go to the attorney. I think that was said by Councilor Felicia earlier. Is that our typical process, or have we stated what our process is previously? Is that the process before an RFP comes to us to sign off? Is the process written, or have we established that that is our expectation in the past, or shall we just say that now going forward, that is what we expect? Just so we can avoid it and, establish what the expectations are.
I think it kind of depends on what the RFP is for, what we're dealing with right now, because we're dealing with these RFPs for some major construction projects, which most of us on the council have not dealt with. That's where all of this is coming to light.
Yep, it totally makes sense. So.
And if I could, we have in the past as a council, made modifications to a motion to allow the town attorney to work with Rusty, as we did a couple of meetings ago, in terms of, it sounds, we've got the gist of what we need to do. And, in the interest of time, and again, Rusty is on point with, we've started behind, we've been behind, we've been trying to catch up to get this, and apologies for not having the I's dotted, T's crossed, but I think David has laid out a case that we can proceed and still protect the town.
Right. I understand that, Mike, but it seems that it's a frequent event. So it's like anything else, unless we correct it, it doesn't get corrected. That's my position on it.
I guess then what is our expectation? Is crossing the T and dotting the I, making sure that it goes through our town attorney before it comes to us for a project of this significance, just so we can make our expectations clear to what we define as crossing T's and dotting I's.
I think we have a responsibility to the citizens of the town that whenever we produce a legal document and we put it out, it should absolutely be reviewed by the town attorney.
I agree, and that makes sense. So can we just do that?
I agree too.
Well, the one thing we're not hearing that I think is important we hear tonight is the consequence of going where I sense the sentiment of the council is, which is either to table or deny this motion. And I think we need to know from Rusty what the consequence of that is.
As I said, when we went to the state, we should have had the commissioning agent on board. We've had this, because we've been looking at so many RFPs. I mean, this sample RFP was sent in a while back, but there were other documents that were taking priority over it. So, it's something that this commissioning agent needs to be on board. I don't want to put you in a position of feeling uncomfortable doing, with this particular thing. And I certainly wouldn't recommend it if I didn't feel that we can do this, go through this process. I certainly didn't know that you were required to go through the attorneys on all the RFPs that you put out, but certainly that's not where I fit into this mix. I'm really trying to assist you in putting out the RFP. I mean, this is normally not part of my scope of service. I'm just doing this because I want the project to move forward and for these particular consultants to be brought on in a timely fashion. Because you don't meet for another 2 weeks after this, that means we'll be delaying the RFP going out for another 2 weeks. And then, by the time the commissioning agent will be on board, a lot of the major decisions that this person may be weighing in on will have passed that time frame, because we can't stop our process in terms of meeting our deadlines. On the 29th, as of the 26th of January, we met the deadline of meeting with the state. We were able to get all our approvals. I was hoping to give you an update on our status as well. And so by delaying it 2 weeks and then it going out for RFP, that'll be another 2 weeks beyond that. That really pushes it a month beyond this date, which just, it makes our lives a little bit more difficult, that's all. If you feel extremely uncomfortable with going forward with it, then we'll deal with it. That's all I can say.
Is there another milestone? You had mentioned that January 26th date that we missed the boat on. Is there another meeting or milestone or
there's a major milestone for what's called the Design Development Review meeting at the state, and that's in April. But in order to be ready for that milestone, this person should have weighed in on a lot of the information that's being prepared right now. So as I said, we're already probably 3 to 4 weeks behind in what this company's responsibility is going to be. So they're going to have to jump in the middle of this whole process. And if they're suggesting change, it really puts it into a position where if they suggest some changes, it's a matter of how far along we've gone before, and can we make those changes? I don't expect it to be a major issue. If that's the case, we can always, modify things, and ultimately it's going to be the town, the users, and the facilities director, their opinion in terms of what type of systems they would like to see in the building. But I just feel that we need to have this individual on board. If we don't have them on board for the DDR, we can't actually go to the DDR because we'll have to just postpone it, which that would be a major problem.
The council. Is that the April date? The DDR?
The DDR is the April date, yes.
Okay.
Right. The council should understand that really what you're saying, I think, is you're not comfortable proceeding tonight because this document has not been reviewed and potentially revised by the town attorney. However, we're reserving the right to do that. Forget about whether it can happen tomorrow or the day after, but you're potentially authorizing it to happen in the very near future. That enables then Rusty's firm to go forward with getting this commissioner in place without waiting an additional 2 weeks and backing themselves into a position where they may have something less than what we really want in their design product come April. So there's no difference if you approve this tonight, reserving the right of the town attorney to make some changes. Then if he makes those changes and comes back in 2 weeks and says, I've made them and now I'm comfortable, what difference are you ending up with?
I agree.
I agree. Okay. Anybody else? If not, we'll call for a vote.
Mr. Mayor, would you like a roll call vote?
Yeah, yes, please.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I think Tim Hurst wanted to say something.
Okay.
Attorney Hurst.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to piggyback on what my colleague said, and to what the last speaker just said as well. If we are reserving the right to allow the town attorney to make modifications, at the end of the day, the contract is of paramount importance. The RFP is of importance, but the contract is of paramount importance because that's what's going to guide the project. I can tell you, as somebody who inherited a $52 million sewer project in progress and a $73 million high school renovation in progress, to come into that situation and to confront problems, I can tell you, I had some very sage advice from my public works director at the time. He said, when you start wrong, you end wrong. Put your money in the plans, put all your attention in the front end, contracts, document review, RFP. So notwithstanding what we just discussed, we're going to be able to reserve the right to review that. But I do think that the council should work to develop a protocol for how these documents are reviewed and vetted on a go-forward basis, especially because you are about to embark upon some very significant capital projects in your town. And it's very important on the front end to make sure that you put the time and the detail in on the front end with the RFP and the contract documents, because you don't want to have to be dealing with situations on the back end where, you are, getting into a situation where you have cost overruns or unforeseen circumstances that could have been avoided but for good, solid contract language. So that's the only thing that I would add to what Attorney Zabel said.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tim.
Mr. Mayor, I have one other thing. I clearly understand it, and I appreciate the guidance from our legal counsel, but that's exactly what we're supposed to be doing, getting counsel from we're supposed to be getting legal advice from our legal counsel. And this is a prime example of something that needed to be done, rather than cutting and pasting things. I don't know when it stops. And I think it's not about, it's actually not about the comments from either attorney. It's more of what's taken place and what has taken place in the past and what's going to take place in the future. This is important. We're guardians of the taxpayers, and it's very important that this is right all the time, every time. We shouldn't be having this discussion. This should have been in my mind, a no-brainer. That's all I want to say.
Okay, thanks, Tommy. We have to decide on something here. I don't like doing things this way either, and I like what Tommy and Walt and Ron have said. I believe Ron has said it, but I think we're safe in doing this, and you're going to get a yes vote from me. I think it needs to be done, and I don't want to tie up Rusty with stuff like this. But we're going to have to look at this and do it differently from now on. Okay, anybody else? Michelle, you want a roll call, please?
Sure. Mayor Viglione.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Zampano.
Abstain.
Councilor Angeloni.
Yes.
Councilor Diamond.
Yes.
Councilor Duty.
Yes.
Councilor Downs.
Yes.
Councilor Fawnin.
Yes.
Councilor Gold.
Abstain.
Councilor Palicia.
Abstain.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, everyone. All right, let's move into the next. I have a memo regarding 2020 FEMA Assistance to Firefighter Grant Program application. Michael, you have something?
Yeah, the memo from the chief and the chairman for the assistance that they want to go through, and it's in your packet, I believe, page 115.
All right, so I have a question for Attorney Zabel in regards to this. So they have a sample language for a resolution, and if we wanted to add more things to this resolution, because I mean, I understand, because actually we're on a timeline here because the grant has to be in by February 12th of 2021. And the fire department has talked about replacing Tower 1 for a couple years and putting the money in our capital program, and it has not worked. And after reading this is what I get out of it, is that for approximately $1 million, I mean, the grant's a little bit less than that, but for approximately $1 million, the town has the potential of only paying $50,000 for $1 million truck replacement. But based on things that have happened in the past, the two things that I would like to add to this resolution is, number one, that if the grant is not approved, the replacement of Tower 1 does not automatically move forward into the capital budget. And number two is, if the grant is approved, the current Tower 1 is to be sold with proceeds going towards the town's 5% cost and any remaining funds to be used for future North Branford Fire Department capital expenditures. So would we be able to add that to the resolution, or is it a separate motion that we should make?
I think you can. Nobody has moved for any particular resolution. What is in front of the town council is a memo about what the town council may want to make the resolution. So I believe you can make the resolution with whatever additions or subtractions from it you want as your original resolution.
Okay.
So in short, Councilor Angeloni, if you want to say, I want the resolution to include the things that you just said, that would be then the resolution that for which somebody would move for approval of, right?
Okay. So for purposes of discussion, I'm going to make a motion. I guess I'll read the whole resolution as the sample resolution so that the townspeople can understand this. I make the motion, whereas the town of North Branford Fire Department is responsible for containing and extinguishing fires in the 26 square miles within the boundaries of the community, whereas the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Federal Emergency Management Agency, offers funds and other resources to communities to aid local fire departments in their response through the Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program, which started in 2001. Whereas the 2020 FEMA Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program application period is from January 4th, 2021 and closes February 12th, 2021, by which all applications shall be submitted. Therefore, the North Branford Town Council hereby supports this endeavor, which, if awarded, requires a 95% federal, 5% local match. Then the town council also states, if the grant is not approved, the replacement of Tower 1 does not automatically move forward to the capital budget. And number two, if the grant is approved, the current Tower 1 is to be sold with proceeds going towards the town's 5% cost and any remaining funds to be used for future North Branford Fire Department capital expenditures.
I'll second that.
So Rose, could you just please repeat, if approved, the
if the grant is approved, the current Tower 1 is to be sold with proceeds going towards the cost, the town's 5% cost, and any remaining funds to be used for future North Branford Fire Department capital expenditures.
Did you get it, Michelle?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
It just, your internet went in and out on me, so I couldn't get it all.
That's what I got too.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. The motion was made by Councilor Angeloni, second by Councilor Gold. Any further discussion on this? Okay, can I have a vote, please, Michelle?
Would you like a roll call or?
Yeah, maybe better, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Mayor Viglione?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Zampiano?
Yes.
Councilor Angeloni?
Yes.
Councilor Diamond?
Yes.
Councilor Duty?
Yes.
Councilor Downs?
Yes.
Councilor Fawnin?
Yes.
Councilor Gold?
Yes.
And Councilor Palicia?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, next we have discussion and action. The first one is purchasing secretary. And number 2 is assistant building official. I guess these are together.
Yeah,
Michael.
from the previous meeting, looking for additional information on the request for additional hours for the purchasing secretary and a breakdown of the duties and responsibilities. And there's a memo in there from Michelle in terms of outlining that position and going forward with the high school, the police department, masonry, and communication, the workload going forward. So, you know, I don't know if there's questions in there, but these are significant projects, and you know, we're still in the midst of a COVID pandemic as well, and these are not just well, I guess with the exception of the masonry work, a summer project. The others are long-term projects that aren't simply a few 6 months or so. So it would be helpful to the organization, to my offices there, because the purchasing and secretary also helps out. Obviously, we cross train in terms of having phones and answering phones, taking notary and other folks that come in. So it's the office kind of function as a group of 4, if you will, with respect to myself, executive secretary, the purchasing secretary, and risk management and purchasing.
So have you checked into, it was brought up at the last meeting about Park and Rec staff secretary being able to support social services?
Yes, I did. I did talk with Jesse about that, and they are reluctant to do that given their workload has increased on their senior side with COVID and the programs that they're doing. Not that it can't be done. I understand the argument you laid out to make from a co-location standpoint within the building. It makes sense, but the workload would be tricky to carve out that portion for social services. But they can, as they always do, they can make it work, and we can continue to explore that. But they have some resistance to do that.
But it's my understanding on, as far as bids and RFPs and all of that stuff regarding the high school, at least, is that, and I thought it would work the same for the police department, if you have a construction manager at risk, that they do all of the bidding for the contractors, the subs.
Yeah.
And they're responsible for that. They're the ones that are vetting that, putting out the they're doing it themselves. And so I don't know where that translates over into the purchasing office. I'm having a hard time understanding that aspect of it.
Yeah, and it's, I think it just in terms of workflow volume with respect to, first getting, and I think from tonight's actions, I think we're going down the path of reactivating the Permanent Project Building Committee. So, staffing to that as well. And, I think the what we purchase and process through the purchasing order, through the department. And again, I think to your point, yes, to some extent, a manager at risk will help that we won't have the contracts or the volume that we did the first time around with MBIS, but it's still going to be an increase in volume as well. And I know Michelle's on the call as well, and can, from a historic standpoint, or Anthony as well, from finance and processing that, working with the state as well, beyond the project and the end of the project, through the audits and so forth. There's a lot of paperwork that's going to be generated for both projects.
Hey, Mike, this is Tom. How many people are in the purchasing department?
You have two. You have purchasing agent and assistant purchasing agent and the secretary. But she's also risk management as well.
So is that 3?
No. That's Michelle doing dual duties as risk manager and purchasing assistant, and then the secretary is purchasing secretary.
And who's the purchasing manager?
That would be me.
So
again, the office of 4 people.
Right. So I guess my question is, having some I want to call it unusual work or an increase in work, isn't some of that slack? Can you pick up some of that slack?
Yeah. But again, I can't really, determine when COVID is taking up quite a bit of time, and I don't see us getting out of this in the next 6 months. So, there's an inordinate amount of calls related to that. So that's where my slack has gone, if there was any. And I think a 10-hour increment is, I think, reasonable, considering that there's a lot coming down the pike.
Well, my feeling is that I'm not so sure that we've received enough information based on this to justify it. And if we were going to increase this, I would not look to be increasing it prior to our new budget year, starting on July 1st. And since we're coming up to budget season right now, I think we have more time to talk about this and see because there's been no numbers presented to us as to what this would cost us.
Yeah, fair enough.
That was going to be my next comment is, I'd like to know on each one of these what the additional cost to the town would be.
And I did put this also on the finance subcommittee's agenda for next week so that we can talk about it more and bring information back to the council. But I don't think we're ready to make a decision on this tonight. At least I'm not. I don't know about anyone else, but I certainly am not.
Okay with me.
I just have a question too. Has the town ever used temps for stuff like this? I mean, this is not going to be these projects are not going to run forever. Have we ever used temp agencies to fill the gap in the work, and then this way, when the projects are over, or the workload goes down, then we're not left with somebody still working the additional hours and costing the town?
Yeah, actually, before I got here, Ron, so I'm not sure. I think they have in the past, but I'll ask those that have been here for a while, and maybe they're members of the council. I don't know, but I may remember that. But I think maybe if you go back to the real busy building boom, then I think maybe building department had some temps, potentially had a second person, but I'll get the historical background on that.
And to piggyback on what Councilor Policia just asked, as opposed to bringing in a temp, is there an option to bring the hours up temporarily and then go back? You know, bring the hours up on a temporary basis for this individual and then go back.
Yeah, we can take a look at all of it and you know, prepare for both the finance subcommittee, and then as we proceed through the budget process, and then we can put a little bit more color on these two positions and projecting, and also historically going back and looking at what they may have dealt with in the past. I mean, it's been, I think in the last 7-8 years, we can say relatively quiet with respect to building and or projects. So we'd have to go back a while, but to check that out and see how they dealt with that.
Well, the other way to look at it also is that if we were considering bringing in a temp, maybe we bring a temp in to work with social services so that this person isn't supporting social services and the temp is supporting social services, and all of her time is with purchasing.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. So what do we want to do with this? We want to table it?
Table it. So
I think you could just sit on the agenda, Bob. I don't think we have to table it.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? All right, let's move into town council budget session schedule for year 2021, 2022.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just sort of the typical layout for our structure in the budget session cycle. There's any changes you want to make?
Okay, so when are we getting our budget books? At that March 16th meeting?
I think that might be doable, but Anthony, I think we finished up with the auditors, but what's your sense? And I think that's a target we could hit.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Okay.
I mean, we really need those before we go into the next week. Look, you know, meeting with police, you know, all the 6 major departments there. We would need our budget books first. So I'm just asking if that's what we're looking at.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. We'll have to get, let's get the target to be for the 16th.
And so is Tuesday,
I think that's what we typically done.
Tuesday, April 20th, the drop dead date of finalizing the budget when you look at when the referendum is and everything?
Yeah, it should be by Guilford located the vehicle.
Is that
meaning is that enough time?
Yeah, do it. You know, I see that's our last. That's one of the last. Well, that's the second meeting, the regular council meeting.
Yeah.
So
I'll check with Lisa. I think that that may push us, but I'll check. I'll check with her on that.
Okay. Everybody all set? Let's, next we have department heads proposed budget schedule for year 2021, 2022.
Do you want to keep that same order? Are you and then there sometimes we've juggled, moved around, but those are 6 that we typically look at.
I mean, that doesn't make any difference to me. The only thing on this department head schedule is that there's a typo. Town council sets public hearing date and it says April 7th in parentheses. And actually on the other schedule, it says April 6th, and that is a Tuesday. So it wouldn't be April 7th. It should be April 6th. Because it has April 6th further down on the budget on this worksheet also.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Rose. Anybody else?
Well, and the other thing under where it says Tuesday, Wednesday, April 6th and 7th, you know, town council adopts the budget, but then there's more budget deliberations after that. So the town council adopts the budget shouldn't be listed by the 6th and 7th because we might not finish on the 6th or 7th. Because you have more dates.
Yeah, in theory, but yeah, we'll put it, if those deliberations are needed,
You can just note that no later than, and whatever that date is with Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anything else? No. All right, let's move into, next we have citizen statements and petitions. Michael, do you have, Anthony?
I don't know that we have anything, but I don't know. I think it might be an opportunity for Rusty, who wanted to give the update on the project, maybe an opportunity.
Okay, you want to do that, Rusty?
Yeah, no, certainly, I'd love to do it.
Okay.
Just to give you a quick update, and if you wouldn't mind, if I could get the slot on the agenda every meeting, just so that I can give you an update and let you know where things stand.
Okay, we could do that.
Because I don't know if you are going to be the building committee or you're appointing a building committee, but there are certain approvals that I'll be needing from the committee or the group that's in charge in order to even to move forward to the state.
Okay.
Rusty, before you go on, I just want to let you know that, so with our appointment tonight to the building committee, that person, and I think we'll have another person coming up to fill the 5th position, but we could actually start moving things that way, is the position that they would like to see is that the council, so, because I know the RFP went out for the construction manager at risk, and because that is such a large cost of the project, they would like to see the council make that decision and then move the project. Once we have that set in place, move the project to them, to the Permanent Project Building Committee. And I think with the appointment tonight of the person that we appointed, I know myself as a council member is very comfortable with moving the project at that point in time.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that should be done relatively soon.
Well, that certainly makes me feel a lot better because there's so many really tight deadlines that are coming along. And I know you guys are so busy with so many other things that, I was a little concerned. But just quickly, we met with the state on the 26th. We had a successful SDR meeting. If you recall, one of our concerns was the whole issue of whether the auditorium would be considered eligible for reimbursement because we moved the building closer. We were able to resolve that, and we have a written response from the state saying yes, that they were going to continue to treat the reimbursement, the space standard guidelines as they did initially when the building was a standalone building, and they also did not have any objections to us keeping the bridge, which I think is a major improvement. So now not only are we not demolishing that the skywalk, but we're also not going to be penalized for making that connection. So that was overall a really significant achievement for that particular meeting, but we were able to have a very successful meeting at that time on the 26th. We've also met with every department and had meetings with the security and technology administration, every academic department. We've had a hazmat walkthrough, and actually I received proposals yesterday from 4 hazmat consultants. Our budget was $65,000. And our bids came in, our proposals came in from a low of 15.6 to a high of 63. I'm actually talking to the two low proposals. One is from Tig and Bond, and they're engineers, but they're also environmental consultants. All four of these consultants are on the state bid list, so from that perspective, there's no issue. And then the second low is Fuss and O'Neill, who actually has and does the hazmat and the HERA reports for the town and for the school buildings. So both of them are very capable. I've worked with all four of the consultants, so that's not there's no concern about capacity and capability. And so we will have a hazmat consultant on hand. The only thing on that, for that part of it, I think we will still need to work out the agreement in terms of between the town attorney and myself in terms of the agreement in terms of indemnification and risk liability. So that needs to happen, and I am going to see if that can happen sooner rather than later. I was involved with this construction manager at risk walkthrough, so we walked with them a few days ago, early last week, and answered all their questions. We've reconfirmed our meetings with the Land Use Commission, and we made sure that there's adequate time to make all the submissions, and also to anticipate if there is a delay of one meeting, how we could accommodate that within the overall schedule. And so far, all that seems to be unscheduled. We are due to complete our schematic package on the 29th. I'm sorry, on the 9th, rather, of February. And at this point, we're almost done. So we are a little bit ahead of schedule on our schematic package, which is good because we are going to have another series of meetings. For instance, we had about 15 meetings in the last 2 weeks with the administrators and staff from the school. And we will have another series of those meetings in the next month or so to get ready for our design development review package. So that's a big picture of where we are. Slightly ahead of schedule on our schematic package, but with the commissioning agent coming on board, as I said, we had the meeting with the facilities director, John, today, and all of that will tie in with the commissioning agent as they come on board as well. So we should make, at this point, I feel relatively comfortable that we will be meeting our schedule. It's very aggressive, but we think it's achievable.
Rusty, can I ask you a question?
Certainly.
At the beginning of your report, you were coming in and out, so I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. You've met with the Bureau of School Facilities, which is responsible for the reimbursement that North Branford will receive, correct?
Yes.
That's through the Department of Administrative Services, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And did they tell you that the natatorium was reimbursable?
No. The auditorium.
Auditorium, okay.
I'm sorry. The auditorium is not part of our scope, but it's not going to be considered part of the space standard square footage for the high school.
Okay. I thought you said natatorium because we had an issue with that where the state would not reimburse on the natatorium. Or in other words, if they were to reimburse, we were not able to use the natatorium during normal school hours because we did not have swimming in the PE curriculum. So there was a big debate about whether we were going to spend $7 million on a natatorium in the absence of that. So I thought you said natatorium, not auditorium. I just wanted to make sure.
No, there's no plans for a natatorium at this point.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Rusty?
Rusty, when do you know when so you did the walkthrough with the construction managers at risk?
Yeah.
Or Mike, either one of you, when are those bids due back?
I believe that.
As my business and moves came on.
Yeah, Friday. Yeah.
Okay. So then set up interviews
Because my business
afterwards.
came on with this.
Right.
Like as part of, because right now it's the council and the ad hoc. The resolution that was passed that went to the state stated that it was the town council / ad hoc committee was the building committee. So if it's your intention then that we interview prior to our next council meeting, then I think we need to establish a subcommittee to do those interviews, because the ad hoc and the town council, you're going to have a committee of, I don't know, 14, 15 people. And I think it should work similar to how it worked with the architects. You know, we had a subcommittee that was formed, and then they made a recommendation to the council. And then the council ultimately was the one that voted on it. And so if the rest of the council is okay with it, I think we should have a subcommittee of no more than 7 people between the council and the ad hoc, who is the current building committee for the high school. Are the other council members okay with this? Or do you all want to participate in the interviews for the construction manager at large, at risk?
It sounds good to me, Rose.
Subcommittee sounds good.
So my suggestion for the subcommittee would be to have 3 council members. I know Marie was on the ad hoc committee as one of the council reps along with Walt. So just wondering, Marie, if you would like to be on the interview committee?
I would like to, as long as
construction manager at
Dave pick. Yes, I would.
Okay. Walt Goad has also volunteered to be on this committee, and myself, I would as the council reps. And from the ad hoc committee, we would like Al Rose and Franny Marola.
Makes sense to me.
And then the Board of Ed would have 2 representatives. And I think one of them should be the rep that was on the ad hoc committee, which was Beth Sienna. And then the Board of Ed, if you can reach out to Scott, can appoint another one. And if Beth doesn't want to do it, they can pick 2. And that would be the 7 members of the committee. And then
So
they'll make a recommendation back to the council. Yes.
If I may, the RFP,
Rusty?
the response is coming on Friday. And, you know, maybe the committee can meet to then go through those responses to shortlist early next week and schedule interview for the following week.
Whatever, yeah. And then the town manager and the superintendent would be part of the committee, but not part of the voting, you know, as part of the recommendation, but they're definitely part of the committee, ex officios.
Okay, I'll coordinate with Scott and Rusty and play around with the look again in preparation of Friday's responses, looking at the schedule for getting that process mapped out going forward.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, because our next meet, so today is the 2nd, so our next meeting is on the 16th. I don't know if it's, I mean, if you're shooting to have us have a recommendation to the council by the 16th, I don't know if that's possible based on everything that has to be done, because then you're looking at the beginning of March for our next meeting. So those are kind of the timelines. But all I can say based on tonight's meeting is that if we're going to shoot for February 16th, if that's what it is, and there's contracts that are involved in it, the town attorney better see those contracts prior to our meeting date. So it might be better the beginning of March. That's quite a tight timeline.
Yeah, is the council open to a special meeting if needed? Just for that purpose?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, I mean, if it's just for that purpose, and if it's, you know, the following week, later that week, so that you have enough time to have the town attorney review the documents, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, it's okay with me, Mike.
I mean, talking about the 23rd?
Well, or whatever date, because if it's a special, make any difference if it's
right.
day. That's the only relatively quick.
Okay.
Do you want to just the way you've laid it out on a consensus, or do you want to amend the agenda to actually put that in as an action item for the minutes?
Attorney Zabel, do we need to officially amend the agenda and make motions, or are we good the way we just stated it?
No, I don't think you need to amend the agenda, no.
Okay.
We don't have all the names yet anyhow. There's someone else from the Board of Ed.
The Board of Ed has 2 spots.
Yeah. And Beth may not want it, so yeah, there may be 2 spots. There's at least one that we don't know who it's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, we could just state, I mean, it's in the minutes that the Board of Education has 2 spots on the committee, and the superintendent and the town manager are ex officios.
So
yeah, I don't think we need a motion.
When you're asking to amend the agenda, you want it to reflect the discussion that you've just had about who would comprise the committee?
Yeah, and whether or not it should be in a motion form or just the discussion captured as a discussion item. So it's not just under public comment.
If it's going to be in the form of a motion, you would have, rather than discussion, you would have to add it to the agenda, and that requires a 2/3 vote of the body to add to the agenda.
Mm-hmm.
But they're not making a motion to do anything at this point.
Correct.
No.
Right. So the question was, do we need to make it a motion for what we just discussed, or can our discussion be part of the minutes under public comment and we just proceed forward?
I believe because you're not actually moving to change anything, you were just discussing what was the makeup of the committee. You haven't made a motion, as I understand it, to change the makeup of the committee, and you don't intend to do that. Since you don't need to take any action, I don't believe you have to add something to the agenda to make a motion, because you're not taking any action. That's what I intended to convey.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. If you need a special meeting, Michael, I'm okay with that.
Okay. Yeah, we'll see how the schedule lines up.
Okay. Okay. We all set with this?
I have one comment on Facebook for you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, go ahead.
From Cliff Potter. Unfortunately, the lack of experienced council people who never went through big projects before is slowing down our forward progress. The seasoned council members get it and rose to the tasks tonight. 2 lawyers advised tonight, and it fell on deaf ears. There are issues that were identified in the process, but we can't keep stopping moving forward, and we will be behind forever on our projects. We look foolish to the professionals doing our work for us.
Okay. Thanks, Cliff. All right. That's it for citizen statements. Michael, you don't have anything?
No.
All right. Okay. Before we move into executive session, I have to, and I believe I'm supposed to do this, I have to let in the public meeting, let the public know what the executive session is about. David, is that right?
Well, I believe it's on the agenda that it's, yes.
So do I have to bring it up during the public meeting? Bring it up like now?
I mean, I think you can move into executive
Yeah, we just
session
make
for.
we just make the motion.
For discussion of the items that are on the agenda.
Right.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Rose.
I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session for items under CGS 1-200 C6A, the town manager, and CGS 1-200 C6B, strategy and negotiations with respect to pending claims, and invite the town manager and the town attorneys into executive session.
Second.
Okay, the motion was made by Councilor Angeloni, seconded by Councilor Diamond. Any further discussion?